Frozen silence on a dying moon. The wind howled like a hungry beast across the icy plains. The moon was dead. No life, no warmth, only endless snow and sharp cold. Somewhere on that frozen land, a thin alien woman walked with slow steps. Her arms were wrapped around something small. Inside her torn cloak, she held her child close to her chest. Her name was Rila. Her skin was pale blue, and her long black hair was stuck to her face with frozen tears. Her body shivered with every step, and her legs felt heavy. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her child had eaten nothing in 3. The child made no sound now, only soft breathing, weak and slow. Rila looked up. There was no sky here, only gray clouds that never moved. The wind pushed against her body like knives. She wanted to scream, but no one would hear. There was no one left. She had been running for days. Her village was gone, burned by raiders. Her husband was dead. Her family was dead. Only her baby remained. And now, even he was slipping away. She dropped to her knees. Her legs would carry her no more. Please, she whispered, though there was no God on this moon. Let him sleep. Let it be painless. She pulled her baby tighter, wrapping her thin body around him. Her own heat was fading. The cold was winning. Her skin had turned numb. Her eyes grew heavy. As she closed her eyes, she kissed her baby's forehead. I love you. And then, nothing. A distant sound. Crunch. Crunch. Snow moved under heavy boots. A man stood in the distance, a human. He wore a thick thermal suit, black, with silver trim, his face covered by a visor. He held a device in one hand, scanning the ground. Suddenly it beeped. He rushed forward. Lying in the snow, nearly buried, he saw them, a woman and a child, still as statues. The man knelt. No, no, no. He pulled out a scanner. Life signs, weak. Very weak, but there. He removed his gloves and touched her neck. Cold, but not dead. He acted fast. From his backpack, he pulled out a thermal blanket. He wrapped them both. Then, he lifted them into his arms. First the child, then the mother. His breath steamed in the air as he ran. Inside a small hidden shelter, deep under snow and ice, the human placed the mother and child on a heated platform. The room was dim, filled with human technology. A fire glowed in one corner. Old ship parts were stacked around. He placed heaters around them and wrapped them in thick layers. He poured warm broth into a small feeding tube and touched it gently to the child's lips. The baby stirred. Barely. The man smiled. They're going to be okay, he whispered to himself. He touched the mother's face, still cold. But slowly, her breathing returned. Rila woke. Her eyes blinked slowly. Warmth? Was she dead? No, she was alive. She looked down. Her baby was wrapped in something, warm, a soft blanket, and he was breathing, still breathing. Tears filled her eyes. Then she saw him, a tall figure sitting beside a fire, his back turned. He was sharpening a tool. Human. Her heart raced. She tried to move, but her body was weak. The man heard her stir. He turned slowly. His face was rough, his beard thick, but his eyes were calm and kind. He said something, but she didn't understand his words. Still, he didn't move closer. He simply raised a hand, slow and gentle. Rila looked at her child again. He was safe, warm, alive. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The man smiled faintly and tossed another log into the fire. He wasn't her enemy. He had saved her life. Outside, the storm continued to rage. The cold winds screamed across the moon's surface. But inside the small shelter, for the first time in days, there was warmth and hope. The human with fire in his hands. Rila didn't know how long. She had slept. All she knew was the warmth, It surrounded her like a soft cloud. Her baby lay beside her, breathing quietly, wrapped in a thick, strange blanket that felt warmer than any cloth she had ever known. She turned her head slowly and saw him. The human. He sat near a soft orange fire, made not of wood but glowing sticks. The fire did not smoke. It hummed quietly, giving off heat like a sun. In his hands, he held a small silver box. With one click, the box opened, and a hot flame danced. On his fingers, he wasn't burning, she gasped. The human turned his head. His eyes met hers, calm, sharp, not cruel. He didn't speak. He just gave a small nod, then held out a strange round cup. Warm broth. It smelled strange, but not bad. Rila stared at him. Her mind was racing. Who was he? Why was he here? Why did he save her? She looked around the room. It wasn't a normal shelter. The walls were made of ship parts, cables, and alien tech. In one corner, an old broken robot sat like a statue. The roof curved like part of a crashed spaceship. Was this where he lived? Her arms shook as she tried to sit up. The human got up quickly, but he didn't come too close. He walked slowly and placed the cup near her hand. Then he stepped back. Rila blinked. He wasn't forcing her. He was giving her a choice. She touched the cup. It was warm. She sipped. Her dry throat burned at first, then relaxed. Her body began to remember what life felt like. The human gave a soft smile. Then he walked back to the fire and returned to working with the strange silver box. He pressed buttons. Flames leapt out. He caught the fire in a metal rod and sealed holes in a broken machine part. It was like he was building something. No, not building. Fixing. The baby stirred beside her. Rila turned quickly. The child opened his eyes and let out a soft, tired cry. She held him close and rocked him gently. He was still weak, but he was alive. That was all she cared about now. The human noticed. He stood, walked over to a small container, and took something out. A tiny metal spoon with a glowing blue tip. He dipped it into another bowl and came closer, holding it out gently. Rila held her breath. She was still unsure. He didn't force, just waited. She looked at the spoon. The smell was sweet, warm. Slowly, she let the spoon near her baby's lips. The child took it, swallowed, then whimpered again for more. Rila's eyes filled with tears. For the next hour, the human fed the baby slowly. Rila watched closely. He moved like a man who had done this before, like a father. But he was alone here. When the baby slept again, Rila whispered, her voice weak. Why? The human looked up. He didn't understand her language, but he understood the question in her eyes. He didn't answer with words. He pointed to the baby, then to her, then placed his hand on his chest. You matter. That was what his eyes said. Night fell again outside. The storm grew louder. The human stood up and began setting more lights around the shelter. He hung metal sheets near the walls and turned on glowing wires to keep the heat in. Rila lay there, staring at the roof. She realized something strange. She felt safe. Not because of the walls, not because of the fire, but because of him. Later, she heard him whispering to a small device. It beeped, then buzzed. No voice came back. He looked tired, but not angry, just used to the silence. She wondered, was he calling someone? Had he been calling for days or years? Then without warning, the lights flickered. Something outside howled. Not wind. Something else. The human stood fast, grabbed a weapon. Not a gun, but something that sparked with energy. Rila froze. Her heart jumped. The baby stirred. The human looked back at her and raised a finger to his lips. Stay quiet. He moved to the door. silent like a shadow. Rila held her breath. What else lived on this moon? When Rila opened her eyes the next morning, the air smelled different. Not cold, not death, but metal, and something sweet, like warm fruit. Her baby slept peacefully beside her, breathing better than before. His skin had color now. She smiled, brushing her fingers through his soft hair. Then she noticed. She was not lying on snow anymore. She was inside a new place, not just a room, a ship. The walls were smooth metal. The ceiling had blinking lights. Vents blew warm air in soft waves. Everything looked half broken but still alive, like the ship itself refused to die. She heard footsteps. The human entered from a hallway, holding a tray. Steam rose from it. Food. He saw her awake and gave a small nod. She watched him carefully now. His face was worn, not old, but full of stories. His hair was dark, short, messy. His hands had cuts and burns, but he moved with purpose. Rila sat up slowly. Her body still hurt, but it was healing. The human placed the tray on a table near her, then pointed to her, then the floor, then made a small house shape with his hands. He was trying to tell her something. This ship was now her shelter. Later, as she walked slowly through the place, she saw more of it. The ship had crashed here long ago. Most of its body was buried under ice. The human had dug tunnels inside it, using heaters to melt and shape the metal. He had built rooms, lights, even a washing area using broken machines. Rila stood in awe. This was no simple survivor. This was a man who had refused to die. She found one room filled with strange items, drawings, broken tech, old clothes. One shirt had small handprints on it, child-sized. Her heart skipped. He had a child or lost one? She touched the cloth gently. Behind her, the human stepped in. He saw what she was holding. For the first time, his smile faded. He sat on a nearby box and looked down. From his pocket, he pulled a small, round metal pendant. He opened it. Inside was a photo, a woman, a child, both human, both smiling. Rila understood. He had not been alone before. She placed the shirt down and bowed her head. He didn't speak. But his eyes said everything. They were gone. After a long silence, he stood up and motioned for her to follow. She did. He led her to a small storage room. Inside were tools, heaters, wires, and metal parts. But in one corner sat something strange. Crib alien in design, small, shaped from glowing silver. Her eyes widened. He had rebuilt it. For her child. The human reached into the crib and pulled out a soft pillow, hand-stitched from scraps of his own clothing. Rila covered her mouth. No one had ever done so much for her. Not even her own people. That night, as she rocked her child to sleep inside the new crib, she heard the human working again. Sparks lit up the hallway. He was building more. For them. For a future. But deep in the shadows of the ship, something else stirred. The lights flickered, a strange sound echoed through the ventilation. Shafts. A scratching, tapping like claws against metal. The human froze when he heard it. Rila noticed his body tense. He picked up a device from the wall and pressed a button. A red warning light blinked. He turned to her and mouthed one word. Hide. Rila held her baby tight and moved behind a wall panel. The human pulled a lever and a metal door slid shut between them. She waited in silence. Then came the sound. Not footsteps. Crawling. Sharp. Wet. Fast. Something was inside the ship. And it wasn't human. The lights inside the ship flickered again. Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind. The dangerous kind. Rila clutched her baby close. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. They were hidden behind a panel, covered in old blankets and metal scraps. The hidden compartment was small, dark and tight. She could barely breathe. But outside, she heard it. Tap, tap, scratch. The sound of claws. Something had entered the ship, something not human, not friendly, not alone. The human, Jalen, moved, like a ghost, silent, focused. He had a strange weapon in his hand. It wasn't a gun. It looked like a staff made of metal and electricity. Blue sparks danced across its tip. He checked each corner, each vent, each shadow. Then he heard it. A wet breathing sound, like something dragging itself across metal. Jalen narrowed his eyes. He tapped a button on his wrist. A small screen lit up. Motion detected. Corridor 3BH. He knew that hallway. He also knew it had only one way in and one way out. He turned toward it. Meanwhile, Rila tried to keep her baby quiet. The child sensed the fear and buried his face in her chest. She tried not to cry, but her thoughts raced. What was that thing? How did it get inside? Was this why the human had built traps in the ship's hallways? Suddenly, bang. A loud crash made her jump. She bit her hand to stay silent. In the dark corridor, Jalen walked forward slowly. He passed over broken tiles and flickering lights. Then he saw it. At the far end of the hallway, a creature, tall, thin, bones sharp and black like glass. Its face had no eyes, only a mouth, open wide, filled with needle, teeth. Its skin crawled with parasite veins that pulsed with purple light. The beast stood still. Then it let out a long, gurgling hiss. Jalen gripped his weapon tighter. He whispered under his breath, "Didn't think you'd come back." The creature lunged, fast, faster than any animal. But Jalen was ready. He slammed his weapon forward. Crack! A blast of blue lightning exploded across the hallway, lighting up the dark. The beast shrieked in pain. Sparks and blood flew in every direction. It slammed into a wall but got back up, wounded but not dead. Jalen stepped back, breathing hard. "Still tough, huh?" he muttered. He tapped another button. Metal doors slammed shut behind the beast, trapping it inside the corridor. Jalen turned and ran. Rila heard the roar, then more crashes. Heavy, violent, the sounds of a battle. The baby whimpered. She kissed his head, whispering softly, "Shh, he's fighting for us." Then something new. Silence again. This time it felt different. Suddenly the door of her hiding space slid open. She gasped, but it was Jalen. His armor was burned. A cut ran across his shoulder, but he was alive and smiling. He pointed to her, then held up his hand and raised one finger. One creature down. Rila nodded slowly, but in her heart, she knew there might be more. Later that night, after the beast's body was burned outside in the snow, Rila sat beside Jalen at the fire. She placed her baby in his arms. At first, he looked surprised. Then slowly, he smiled. He cradled the child, gently, just like a father. Rila watched his face. This man had fought monsters in the dark, but now he held her baby like he was holding life itself. Outside, the cold winds blew, but inside, the fire glowed brighter than ever. For now, they were safe, but danger still walked the frozen lands of this dying moon, and Jalen would be ready. Days passed. The snowstorm outside the ship finally stopped, but the cold still ruled the land. Rila and her baby now had food, warmth, and safety, but she could feel something else inside the shelter. Sadness, not hers. His Jalen, the quiet human who had saved her, the man who fought monsters in the dark but never spoke of himself. Rila watched him from the corner of the room. He sat by the glowing fire fixing a broken machine with careful hands. His tools clicked and sparked. His face stayed calm, but behind those calm eyes, she saw the storm, not the one outside, the one inside him. That evening, Rila prepared something for him, a warm drink made from crushed fruit and dried herbs. She had found them in the ship's storage, She didn't know human food well, but she tried. She offered it to him with both hands. He looked surprised, then smiled. A real smile. "Thank you," he said softly, though she still didn't know the words. Then he did something unexpected. He placed a small device near his throat. It beeped, and then, "My name is Jalen." Her eyes widened. The translator. It worked now. She pointed to herself. "Rila." He nodded. "Rila." Then he touched the baby's hand gently. "His name?" She thought for a moment. "Cohen." He smiled again. "Cohen is strong." That night, Rila sat beside him near the fire. The baby slept between them. Jalen stared into the flames. Then, slowly, he spoke. The translator buzzed as his words came through. "I came here 5 years ago. I was part of a team. Rescue team. We crashed." He paused. Rila listened without a word. "Only I survived. The others died in the cold, or worse." He looked at the metal floor. "I tried to send signals. Nobody came. Not even once." He gave a small, bitter laugh. "At first I waited. Then I built. Then I stopped hoping." Rila touched his hand lightly. He didn't pull away. He continued, voice low. "I had a wife, a daughter, back on Earth." He opened a small silver locket from his neck. Rila leaned closer. Inside was a photo. 2 humans. One woman with soft eyes. One child with big smiles. His voice cracked. "I don't know if they're alive anymore. Maybe they think I'm dead." He closed the locket slowly. "Maybe I am." Silence. The fire crackled between them. Rila reached into her pocket and pulled out a tiny charm, made of old bone and thread. She had made it for her baby long ago. She handed it to him. A gift. A thank you. Jalen took it gently, then nodded. The next morning, Jalen woke early and walked outside the ship. Rila followed him quietly. He stood on a high hill, watching the sky. He had built a tall signal tower there, blinking a red light upward, still calling for help. Still hoping, even after everything. Rila stepped beside him. Their eyes met. 2 people, from different worlds, both lost, both still breathing, both still fighting. Back inside, Jalen began building something new. A new wing in the shelter, with more rooms. Not for him. For them. A family. That night, as Cohen laughed for the first time, Jalen picked him up with both arms and held him high. Rila smiled with tears in her eyes. In a galaxy full of war, hunger, and silence, 1 human's broken heart had made room for 2 more, and in that place, something stronger than survival had begun to grow. The sky turned red, not from sunset, but from danger. Jalen stood on the snowy hill, eyes locked on the horizon. A strange glow lit up the far mountains, pulsing like a heartbeat. The wind was changing, faster, sharper, screaming louder with every second. Rila stepped out of the shelter, holding Cohen close. She felt it too. The world had shifted. Jalen turned toward her and shouted just one word, "Inside." Rila didn't ask questions. She ran back to the shelter with the baby in her arms. Jalen followed, sealing the metal door behind them. Then he rushed to the control room, hands flying over buttons and switches. The screen blinked. Warning. Ionic ice storm inbound. Full system failure likely. Jalen's face went pale. This storm wasn't normal. This storm could kill everything. Lights began to flicker. The power core gave off a loud hum, then a snap. Sparks shot from the wall. Cohen cried. Rila held him tighter. The air turned cold. Fast. The heaters were shutting down. Jalen grabbed 2 power cells, still half charged, and ran to Rila. He placed one next to her, wrapped in thermal cloth, and pushed it between her and the baby. "Stay here," he said. Rila grabbed his arm. "No, you stay." "No. You." He looked at her and smiled softly. "I've lived in the cold. You haven't." Before she could stop him, Jalen ran toward the engine room. The core had to be restarted, manually. The storm was now above them. Ice and wind slammed against the walls. The ship groaned. Metal screamed. Snow forced its way into vents. Inside the engine room, Jalen opened the access panel. Cold air hit him like knives. He pulled off his gloves. His bare hands shook as he worked. Each wire he touched burned with frostbite. But he didn't stop. He thought of the baby's laugh. He thought of Rila's smile. He thought of the locket in his pocket, his wife and daughter long gone. Back in the shelter room, Rila heard the storm howling through the walls. The baby cried harder now. The heat was almost gone. She wrapped herself tighter around Cohen. Her lips turned blue. She looked toward the engine hallway. Still no Jalen. Still no heat. Still no light. Then, boom. A loud sound shook the walls. She screamed. Then all lights went dark. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. She didn't know anymore. Just silence. The kind that makes your chest hurt. Then, a thump. A soft knock on the metal door. She opened it and fell to her knees. Jalen stood there, covered in frost, barely breathing. His skin was turning white. His hands were bleeding. But in his arms, he held a glowing power core, still warm, still alive. He collapsed beside her. "I told you," he whispered. "I'm used to the cold," Rila cried as she pulled him close. Cohen reached out his tiny hand and touched Jalen's face. Jalen smiled, then closed his eyes. For the next 2 days, Rila never left his side. She used the emergency heater to keep him warm. She boiled water, fed him drop by drop, cleaned his wounds, held his hand. On the 3rd day, Jalen opened his eyes, weak but alive. Rila laughed and cried at the same time. Cohen crawled into his lap, and for the first time Jalen whispered, "Home." The storm had taken power. It had taken light. It had taken blood. But it could not take what they had built. A bond, a family, a reason to keep living. Snowflakes danced in the wind above the quiet moon. The storm was gone now. Only silence remained. But inside, the broken human ship, something new had taken root. Life. Jalen lay on a soft bed made of recycled cloth and wires. His body was healing. The burns on his hands were still fresh, but the pain had faded. At his side, Rila sat holding a warm cloth and a small bowl of soup. She dipped a spoon and gently fed him like he had once fed her. On the floor, Cohen played, with a glowing ball made from spare ship parts. He giggled, chasing the light like it was magic. Jalen watched them both. For the first time in years, his chest didn't feel heavy. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. Later that day, he stood up slowly. His legs still shook. Rila rushed to help him. "I've got it," he said with a small smile. But she stayed beside him anyway. They walked together down the hallways he had once built alone. Now, they were walking them as a family. At the edge of the ship, a small new room had been built, walls painted with glowing stones, a child's bed, a shelf with tools and little handmade toys. Jalen leaned against the doorframe. "I thought I'd never hear laughter again," he said softly. Rila looked at him and whispered, "You gave us warmth, now we give it back." He smiled. That night they sat around the fire again, this time not for survival but for peace. Rila sang a soft song from her homeworld. Cohen clapped his tiny hands, laughing in delight. Jalen stared at the stars through the broken window above them. "I tried to send a message every day," he said. "For years." Rila looked up. "Still sending?" He nodded. "Maybe someone hears it now. Maybe not." She placed her hand on his. "Even if they don't, we did." But then, something changed. A beep, a soft blinking light on the far wall. Jalen's head snapped toward it, the signal tower, still active, still sending, and now, receiving. He ran to the console. The screen flashed. Union vessel received distress call landing ETA, 16 hours. Jalen's breath caught in his throat. They were coming. Humans. Rescue, after all these years. He turned to Rila, wide-eyed. They're coming. The next hours passed in a blur. Jalen packed supplies. Rila cleaned the baby's clothes. Cohen tried to carry everything with his little hands and made everyone laugh. But deep in Rila's heart, a question grew. Would they be welcome? She was not human, and Cohen was not fully one of them. Would the people coming take Jalen away? Would they reject her? Would they fear the bond they had formed? She didn't ask out loud, but Jalen noticed the worry in her eyes. And that night before they slept, he looked at her and said, "I'm not leaving you. I didn't survive this long to lose my family now." Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but because she finally believed it. She was his family. When the ship came, silver and bright like a star fallen from the sky, it landed with grace and thunder. 3 humans stepped out in clean suits. Their faces froze when they saw Jalen, and then widened with shock. "Commander Jalen," one said. "You're alive?" Jalen nodded. "Took you long enough." They laughed. Then they saw Rila and Cohen. The laughter stopped. A long silence. Jalen stepped forward. "This is Rila, and this is Cohen. They're my family. If you won't take them, you're not taking me either." The officers looked at each other. One stepped closer and kneeled beside the child. Cohen reached out and touched his badge. The man smiled. "Well," he said, "looks like he's already one of us." Jalen let out a deep breath. Rila's shoulders relaxed. The officer stood and nodded. "All of you, welcome aboard." Before they left the moon, Jalen walked to the edge of the hill one last time. He buried something in the snow. His locket. The last memory of his old life. He didn't need it anymore. He had new memories now. Stronger ones. As the rescue ship flew into the sky, the cold moon faded behind them. But in Jalen's arms, Cohen slept peacefully, and Rila leaned her head against his shoulder. Together, they watched the stars pass by, not as survivors, not as strangers, but as something more powerful. As a family, far across the galaxy, war still raged, planets still burned, civilization still rose and fell. But in one corner of the universe, on one ship full of hope, a human heart had changed the fate of 2 lives, and their warmth would go on to change many more. Because sometimes, even in the coldest galaxy, a single act of kindness can start a fire that never dies.